I'm Tom Prince with Western New York Athletics. That's right, it's not Frank Wolf, it's Tom Prince tonight. I apologize, everyone. Frank is under the weather right now. He's asked for me to step in today. I hope I can do what Frank normally does because he does such a fantastic job. This is a show that he has put so much time and dedication to already. He's had an image in his head that he's brought to life, and it's been great to see what he's accomplished here with this show. And just want to say, Frank, I hope you get better real soon. You're definitely on my mind. Want to make sure that you're okay, but I will do my best to at least try to fill in your shoes. But I went out and got what I felt was one of the best guests I could have joined with me on this show. I have so much respect, admiration for this person. I think the world of this person, and it was the first one I thought of to bring on the show with me. And I have to introduce the photographer from the Buffalo News, Harry Scull. Harry, thanks for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thanks, Tom.
So, my first question before I get into anything is, how are you doing right now? I mean, all of us are going through so much right now with this new normal. How are you personally doing?
I'm doing fine. It's just been a change, but through this pandemic, I've chose to live by faith and not fear, in my everyday life. And so far it's been good. I'm not, out there being foolish, but I'm being cautious. But, I'm just going to live by my faith and trust it and get me through this.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I'll tell you, there's so many people that are living through your eyes right now. Just every photo shot that you put out, every picture that you put out, you can just see that we're living right through your eyes and seeing all the things that you're seeing out there right now. So,
Our staff, the Buffalo News, is incredible and talented, and we've taken you to every facet of this pandemic, trying to show you what life is like with it.
yeah, there's been no doubt about it. No doubt. So let's get into some of my questions right now. So the first one I've got for us is take us on your journey. You've had positions before you got to the Buffalo News and some while you were at the Buffalo News that you did together. Tell us about some of the positions that you've had before this that's led up to the photographer that you are today.
Well, before I started the Buffalo News, I went to Buff State. I played football there for a year and a half, and I majored in criminal justice. I minored in photography. My uncle, who was a captain in the Amherst Police Department, always told me go to school for two things. If you're lucky, you can blend the both of them together, but if not, you can go one way or another. Well, when my football career came to an end on my choice, I always had the love for the camera, and I started working for the school newspaper, The Record. And it gave me the outlet to cover news, a lot of sports. I mean, sports were big at Buff State then, and it led me into being able to do stringer work for the Associated Press or Reuters, or doing some New York Times assignment, assisting other people, and making connections in the Western New York and Buffalo area. After I finished at Buff State, I worked for a couple studios, and I also did a bunch of work I still work for the AP, and I did a lot of work for Pro Football Weekly out of Chicago, Illinois.
Wow, wow. And but you've also got a chance to have a stint in the NFL too.
Yeah, back when I was doing the AP work in Buffalo, I noticed that every time the Bills were on the road, the Pittsburgh Steelers were home. Multimedia and media was completely different then. And I reached out to Dan Edwards with the Pittsburgh Steelers director of communications and said, "Hey, listen, I'm up here in Buffalo. I do these games, and I notice every time the Bills, are away, you're home. Is there any chance of coming down to do the games?" And he said, "Yeah, I'd love to have you." And 35 years ago, and he sent me credentials every year to go down to the games. Well, subsequently, he had taken the job with the Jacksonville Jaguars when they were given their franchise. And, he'd always ask me about coming down and shooting for him, coming down. And, frankly, my family was rooted in Western New York and living in Springville, and, working at the Buffalo News. And, I wasn't ready to give it up at that time, and they'd asked me again. And then finally, he had me down for a mini camp and said, listen, we'd like to have you aboard. We'll make it easy for you. You can still work at the Buffalo News. We'll fly you in and out every weekend. And, I was able to do that through the news. So, I did that for 7 years under, Jack Del Rio as the head coach. And, it was just an amazing experience. One of 30 jobs.
That's phenomenal. I could just imagine some of the stories that you've got doing that. Yeah, just going back and forth with the NFL teams.
Well, with Coach Del Rio was a family guy, and before my walk with the Lord, I would hear him talk in the locker room pregame and not understand a lot, but once my journey started with Jesus, I understood him clearly. Although he was a coach, to this day he's a friend. We reach out, we talk to each other. Just a special man that I was able to have my time with him.
Yeah, that's great. I know you've talked about your relationship with him before, and that was going to be my next question, just as to bring up that relationship and why it was so special, and what happened to make that relationship blossom. And
yeah, I just think we connected, and it was, when I say family, it was family, and it was every bit about it. We shared meals together outside of football, and I shared his high school son's sporting events with him, and was around his family, and it was family, and when I first started there, I had one of the assistant equipment managers come up to me, and he said, "Hey, I hear you're from Buffalo," and I said, "Well, yeah, kind of." He's like, I grew up in a small town. You probably never heard of it. It's just outside Buffalo, but it's a town called Springville. And I said, yeah, class of 1984, and then,
wow.
there was a time we drafted a guy out of Notre Dame by the name of Derek Landry, who went on to be the St. Joe's coach and marry a girl from Williamsville. It's just, it's a small world. They're a lawyer for the Jaguars, graduated from Canisius College. Just a small world. And, I mean, how cool is it that every weekend I got to get on a plane and go out of town and be with them? And it was just a special, special time. It never felt like a job.
And that is the best job you could ever ask for, is when it doesn't feel like one. You're doing something passionate that you love. There's no doubt about it. There's nothing better than that. It's funny, Harry. You brought up a great point. Is I at one point was working in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, with a job, and I was listening to the radio station down there, and they came on and they said, "Listen, we just saw this poll. We can't believe it." And unless you live in Buffalo, honestly, most people don't get it. And that is, the poll was, what is the number one city that people move back to once they leave? And the answer was Buffalo. And the people on the radio were ripping it, going, "Who the heck would want to go back to Buffalo?" And unless you are here and you understand the community that's here in Western New York, you wouldn't understand it. And just shows how great it is to be here in Western New York.
There's nothing like four seasons. I mean, we get some snow, that's the worst. We move it and we move on. I mean, we all love warm weather, but really, if you're in Florida and it's 90 degrees every day for 6 months, at some point it gets old. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Listen, my dad lives out in Arizona, and whenever in the winter I always get those texts and those things, it's 70 degrees here. I go, yeah, but it's 110 when I'm enjoying our summer. So,
Absolutely. I mean, this is the best time of year.
yep, couldn't agree with you more. So, Harry, my passion has been high school sports, right? My passion has been there, and I've been hosting shows on West New York Athletics Facebook page with players and coaches. One of the questions I ask all the players is, what is your most memorable moment you've had on a high school field? Is one of the questions I ask. So I got to ask you the same question, right? What has been your most memorable moment that you had in high school sports?
Well, playing football and baseball and basketball in Springville. Now, back in the 80s, football, hockey, to be truthful with you, if hockey was the way it was now, hockey would have been my sport. I was on skates by 3, pond in the back of the house. Everything just came really, really natural. But I played 1 year organized hockey in Orchard Park, and it wasn't feasible. It wasn't as easy as it is now. So, football became the sport. I played under an amazing group of men in Springville with Coach Nugent and Coach Schlageter and Coach Havens and Coach Dupre. And, truly, I think if those coaches had the opportunity that today's coaches have, there'd be more than one state championship here. But, back when I went to school, I graduated in 84. So in 82 and 83, we lost one game. Our junior year, we lost to Mr. Frank Payne and Chris Payne in Depew on their homecoming, which, is debated. Some will say it was a home call on that extra point, and that's fine. And, our senior year, we lost to Ken Canzaneri and Alden. So those senior years and junior years, one game, you lose, there's no playoffs. Only one team went to Rich Stadium, and then the season ended. So, boy, would we in Springville love to have had another opportunity at those people. But, probably my most memorable game was I got injured in Cleveland Hill my senior year, and I spent Saturday, I think, through Wednesday in the hospital, and with a back issue, and got out of the hospital on Thursday, and I dressed and played against Eden on Friday, and I had 17 tackles, interception, and a fumble recovery. So, it was kind of, that was probably the big game. Eden was talented back then, and they had a fellow by the name of Burt Widener. I don't know if you know Burt Widener from Eden, but
Yeah.
tremendous baseball player that went to Kent State and then actually was drafted by the Miami Dolphins and was Dan Marino's center for many years. So, without having playoff games like that, that probably stood out. But, as any high school player would tell you, it's the smell of the dew. It's, the walk, the sound of the cleats walking to the field, the Friday nights, the coaches. You never, ever lose that special feeling and the bond you had with your teammates to this day.
Yeah, and you even when I asked the question to a lot of the players, a lot of them will just talk about moments they've had with other players, just on the bench, the conversations, the hotel rooms, like all the different things that just make up those friendships. There's no doubt about it.
Well, it was fortunate because back then our coaches lived in our community. They weren't coaches that worked in a community and took their paychecks back to other communities. They were part of our communities. They weren't afraid to be seen at a restaurant or a supermarket, and they were all in with you. And that doesn't happen today in a lot of levels, but it was just special. Those people today, I see them and, I'm still excited, and we were in Panama for basketball this year, and I got to see Coach Nugent as he's watching his son-in-law coach. And, I see Coach Dupre at his son's games, Jimmy down in Pioneer. And, those are special, special men that I look forward to seeing and, having time with them anytime I can. They left an impression on me.
That's great. That really is. But I will say this 17 tackles, an interception. That's a Conley Cup nomination right there.
Yeah. It was never a captain. It was never about the awards. It was just coming and doing your job, and athletics came natural to me. So the Lord gave me a blessing there where I was able to throw a ball, punt a ball, kick a ball. Wasn't the strongest kid on the team and I wasn't the fastest, but all the other stuff, yeah, that came real natural. I mean, in baseball, I left-handed. I pitched, I caught, played first base, right field. So, every game I didn't know where I was going to go. Left-handed catcher, you don't see a lot of those.
No, you really don't. Not anymore. Very rarely, D. I had one that I had on my travel teams, but again, like you said, it is so rare that you see a left-handed catcher. And it's, throwdowns, all different things the way it is. But absolutely right. Wow, lefty catcher. So
back then it came down to, you put a right-hander in there that's just a ball player, or do you want to put a left-hander back there who's athletic, who can make a throw, who can block a ball, do the little things? And it came easy.
That's awesome. Wow. And basketball too, you said you played.
Yeah, I played 3 years of basketball. It was interesting. I live around a lake, so both my coaches were my neighbors. So, that made it easy. I started, as a manager back in middle school. So you're always around those Saturday practices and picking up balls. And yeah, basketball was interesting, and, my one story from basketball is, actually, I got two stories. When I was a manager, Phil Smolinski was our coach. His son's over at the University of Buffalo. And I remember he was on the road and he wasn't happy with the team. At halftime, he called him to the huddle, not in the locker room, in the huddle, and just said, you shirts, you skins. They scrimmaged for halftime.
No way.
So I take it back to my sophomore year under Coach Slageter. I think we were on the road and he wasn't happy with our performance. Halftime, we ran lines.
Wow.
Imagine seeing that today. But you know what? That's what made you a better man, a better person. It was just part of them being the parent when you weren't there. And back then, you didn't go home saying to your parents because, you'd probably get some additional punishment.
How true is that? So Harry, could you put it down?
Dunk?
Yeah.
No, no, absolutely not. On the ball, 60 yards? Absolutely, Could I throw a ball? Yeah. No, I could not throw one down. Maybe off the wall, but no.
That's great. Awesome. Well, listen, everybody knows you as the photographer here in Western New York. And like I said, there's so many moments that I've lived through your eyes that I can really see. And I really just can see what you see through your eyes. So there has to be so many pictures that you've been proud of along the way because you've captured so many priceless photographs. I'm sorry. What is the most memorable photograph that you've taken in sports? Let's start there.
Well, probably the one that I'm known for most is the night Clint Malarchuk had his jugular slit at the Sabres game. That one there probably is what people know me for, or my pre-game photo of O.J. Simpson walking across the field in the Bruno Magli shoes. Those two images probably what most people know me for.
Is there one that is close to your heart?
There's just so many. It's probably just the joy in some of these celebration moments when you get to follow. There's a lot of people who talk about the best 2 weeks of basketball at Buff State, in which I agree. That's incredible basketball. But, as I think I think the best 4 weeks of high school football starts with section championship and then the Far West regionals and the semi. When you can embed yourself in that basketball team or football team and spend that month with them, it is priceless. It's better than any NFL game on a Sunday, just to be with those high school kids and that pure enjoyment. And these coaches, that's a special.
Especially for those seniors that it could be their last game they ever play. The emotion that's out there is just, it really is, it's overwhelming.
It is. I mean, you've been to them, and there's nothing like. I love shooting the Bills. I love shooting the Sabres. The college basketball. If they called me in the office tomorrow and told me you're never going to shoot that again, it's only going to be high school sports, that would be such a blessing. I mean, I love shooting at other stuff, but there's nothing like those kids, those high school kids. It's just, it's special times. And, we've seen miraculous victories. We've seen games of the century. I mean, in the past couple of years, I've got to document both boys and girls basketball players as they broke this Western New York scoring record. I've seen coaches win back-to-back state championships. You've seen the team take their run that wasn't supposed to be there. I mean, those times with those players and those coaches, it's second to none. And, the way I treat my high school sports is I don't treat a high school football game any different than I do a Buffalo Bills or a UB game, other than I can have more access. And the coaches let you in the locker room, and the coaches let you on the sideline. They trust you. And, you know, I like to take that into my photos and take people where they can't be, you know. To me, that's what it's about.
Yeah, and it's exactly what we see. Like I said, it's seeing it through your eyes. The things I can't see, or I'll never get a chance to see, and that's where these memories come from for everybody that's here in Western.
You know, some people go out and just say, ah, it's just a high school football game or it's just a high school basketball game. No, it's, you know what, I'm documenting something for these kids' life. I had a food assignment yesterday for a new restaurant in East Amherst, and the family was excited. The boy played hockey at St. Joe's, and he showed me a Twitter picture I had when they won at First Niagara Center. And he said, we bought that picture and blew it up on the wall. You know, and you don't realize those people that you touch. I mean, the one thing I wish is, I wish I could be a fly on the wall a lot of mornings when, you know, these high school athletes are in the paper and they have no idea they're coming, and there they are on the front page celebrating, or a big catch or a dunk or something, and, you know, see the parents' eyes. I wish I could live that, but what a blessing the high school sports are.
Oh, there is. It really is. And you know, as a parent, I've lived that, right? And as an athlete, I did too. I mean, there was, you know, everybody knows that I was a big track and field guy, and I had some great pictures that were taken me. I was a high jumper back in the day. And when I'd open up the paper the next day and see this picture of me going over the bar at the high jump, it was just, you get so excited, you were thrilled, you couldn't believe it. It really is just such a great memory that you always treasure.
And, you know, nowadays, you know, with the limited amount of space and papers, you know, you can actually give more with the galleries online, and these kids, you know, it's just, to give back to these kids is just, it's the greatest feeling. It's, to me.
Yeah, and then I totally get that. So let's talk about. We just talked about some of the best high school pictures or sports pictures that you've ever taken. You do a lot outside sports too. So what's that most memorable photograph that you've taken outside of sports?
Well, unfortunately, years ago, I had Flight 3407 go down 2 blocks from my house in Clarence Center. So probably that. You know, I think if for people that recall, Syracuse was on ESPN that night, and, you know, my neighbor gave me a call and said, I think a plane went down in a house, and I was literally there 30 seconds later, and you know, beat all the first responders, beat all the other media there, you know, and, you know, I can share this story now, but like, all people, all professionals have that nightmare, you know. Oh, I forgot to put my pants on, or where's my glasses, or you get to your job and well, I get up to the scene, I parked right across from the fire hall, I took my camera out, and my battery was dead on mine. But you know what? The Lord blessed me. There was another one sitting on the front seat. You know, it literally took 10 seconds to go back and get it. And I spent, I think I shot 33 frames. I was there just a tad over 3 minutes. You know, the funny part was, I remember rolling up on the scene, and I called the news, and Randy Rhoda was working city desk, and you know, Rhoda city desk, and I said, hey, Randy, it's Harry. I want to let you know I'm in Clarence Center. I'm on location of a plane in a home, and it's fully engulfed. And his comment was, Harry, we're on deadline. We don't have time to play games. I said, Randy, this is real. So knowing that we were at that 10:30 mark, and we needed to make that 11 o'clock, which eventually got pushed back, I only stayed there 3 minutes to get what I needed and get out of there. And thank God I got out of there, because I was literally across the street from the fire hall. If I wouldn't have got out there, once they started laying the hoses, my car would have been there indefinitely.
Wow.
So yeah, you know, that tragedy there, probably that, along with, you know, the image I have of O.J. Simpson wearing those Bruno Magli shoes, you know, those two images, you know, most people of the or the older generation know. I mean, the younger kids know me for their high school sports, but yeah, that was a trying time in our community, and actually in Western New York.
Oh, no doubt about it. Wow, that is some great stories right there. So, you've got some fantastic photos right behind you, right there. That is one heck of a room that you're in right there.
Yeah,
There's
I
some big pictures right there.
yeah, I've got the OJ picture up there, and I've got an image from Flight 3407 when that went down, and my Clint Malarchuk, and then over on the other side I've got my signed images of Carrie Underwood and Eddie Van Halen. I've recently, a little less than a year ago, moved in here, so I'm going through the process now, and there is so much, to try to decide what to put up on the wall. So much.
No doubt about it. So, in the process of you taking some of these great photographs, you've gotten to attend some amazing events at the same time. What would be the most amazing event that you felt that you've ever got to go to because of being a photographer?
Well, I mean, I think I've covered the last 4 or 5 presidents. I've covered the Super Bowl, covered a Stanley Cup final, covered Major League Baseball, covered NBA basketball while it was here. Um, the high school sports. There's nothing like that championship game, basketball or football, for a state championship. I mean, that's pretty much all we can, well, other than the track and field, that's what we compete for. And that is just special. We just, the last 2 years, you know, I got embedded with, Clymer, Sherman, Panama, Coach Harper just gave me all access, and you almost feel like you're part of them because you get to live it and you get to see the excitement. And I know just the excitement I have on being an outsider in that, like these kids have no idea what it's going to be like as they get older and get to go back and share the memories and the photos and the newspaper and talk about it. I mean, I do it now and I never won a state title. I can only imagine how special that would be to those boys.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh, wow. Like I said, I could sit here and talk about some of the memories and the things that you've been through. I could just imagine, even just like when you ask, is there are so many people that, we consider famous people or, famous artists or whatever it is. And you've got to even have some of those moments where you're like, boy, that was somebody who was special that you got a chance to cover.
Like I said, I've met most of the presidents, and I've obviously met every hockey player that's come through here, and most of the football players. Probably if I had to pick my number one, um, Clay Moden many years ago gave me a meet and greet pass for Sugarland, and I've got to meet Jennifer Nettles, and I will tell you, she is everything and more. And I got to spend a little more time with her because I was the last one in line, and I got to share that with her. That I've met football players, baseball players, basketball players, hockey players, musicians, and like you're the cat's meow because you are who you are, and you're just that genuine. That was special. And then I think back to Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux. I mean, as classy as they come. I see them, lose in Buffalo, and you know what? Not deny one kid an autograph after the game. Stop for every single one of them. Those are men who got it. I mean, it's little different today, but those memories of those 3 people. But Jennifer Nettles probably definitely, that always will have that special place just how genuine she was.
Yeah. Wow. Those are some great ones. So you've been out, and you talked about it a little bit. You've been out right now capturing some of the moments during this pandemic. Tell us some of the things you're seeing and capturing right now in Western New York during all of this.
Well, the one thing is the unemployment. It's as this COVID doesn't discriminate against anybody. People that are out of work are New Era Cap, GM, the Sabres, the Bills, restaurant owners. It doesn't discriminate on everybody's out. And just I guess the uncertainty and what the new news is going to be like. I mean, this affects every facet of life. Um, I did an unemployment series at the Buffalo News about a month ago where I went and showed 13 different people in different walks of life and what they're going through. Um, 2 weeks ago, I went and spent a day with a milkman who had just unretired from his job because of, people wanting him to come back and do the deliveries. In today's paper and yesterday, I went to Buffalo General and photographed 6 X-ray technicians who just lost their colleague to COVID. He caught it in the hospital. Spending time in an X-ray room that he spent time in with them. Um, just it's just heartbreaking, and I see it in all facets, whether I'm in Springville or I'm in the city of Buffalo or Amherst. See it more in the city because there's more people out walking about, and I spend a lot of time on Bailey and Fillmore, and you're kind of in the heart of it. I think a lot of ways people are coming together. I think a lot of the old new is becoming the new. Family dinners together, board games, sitting home and watching a movie, just spending time together, which frankly, I think people have gotten away from. It's nice. It's nice to see that these athletes, whatever they AAU or their second sport is, they have to give their body a break. You have to give your body a break. And I think it's going to be good for a lot of them. I was with Amari DeBerry on her shoot, and she talked about not playing AAU, and she was so this is the first time in a long time that I get to rest my body. So I think that's going to be good in the long run for some of these kids, and they come back better and stronger. And but for the ones that are going to miss out on their senior season or their senior year, that's going to be a tough one.
And we're going to find those news out today, as we talked about. Probably by the time this airs, we'll know whether schools will be going back or not.
Yeah, as we spoke earlier, I mean, if you look at the timeline and back in March when, the governor waived the 180 days that the kids needed to be in school. And then, a week later, New York State called off the regents and mandated exams, and then a little more than a week later, governor canceled the spring break, keeping the kids learning through that time. You can just see that timeline in my mind, where they were ending in late June with those 2 weeks of exams, has now been pushed up. And for as hard as it is, I don't see possible them ever opening the schools this year, just because you cannot put anybody at risk. You can't put 300 kids in a hallway at one time, or 200 kids in a cafeteria at one time, or and then you just think about the sports, and generally the people that are officiating these games are older people. You put an umpire behind home plate, for 7 innings. You've got the official that's doing the lacrosse game that's involved with these players in contact on every face-off. Nobody wants to see one person get sick. So I honestly, I don't see the high school sports coming back as much as I'm going to miss it. I think the big question is, what's the fall going to look like?
Yeah, no doubt. And I've been, I also do summer leagues and baseball and stuff like that. I've been trying to think about ways to social distance, and I think you may even see the way that baseball is umpired. Like if we're able to pull this off, you're probably going to have to pull the umpire out from behind the plate and bring him behind the mound so that you can have that 6 feet still there. And if we're able to do such a thing, so that there can be some sort of social distancing that's done. And I think the crowds, we can social distance them around the fields to make that happen. But you said it right now. There are 42 states, I think, at this point that have shut schools down for the year. So we're only one of 8 states that still hasn't. And we're the hardest hit of all the states. I'm finding it hard to believe that they're going to do, that he's going to be able to open up something. And, but everything, like you said, shocks you along the way, his announcements. So it just now depends on what's this really announcement going to be. But I think no matter what it is, I just think people want closure to it and want to know, okay, what is the next step? How do I prepare for it so we can move on, right? If we're going to close, great. Then how do we figure out how we're going to do these graduations, right? How do we figure out how we're going to do whatever it's going to be as the next step, right? That's the next thing that we want to do. And nobody's been able to do the planning phase of all that, not knowing what the next step's going to be.
Well, yeah, and we don't know what the fallout's going to be because every state is hurting, school districts are hurting. So what's the fallout from this? I mean, we look back a years ago, and what was the fallout of the budget problems then? I mean, football lost a game, you know, wood soccer lost a couple games, lacrosse lost a couple games. There were cost cutting measures all over the place. I mean, I believe that's going to come back. It's everyone's going to have to chip in. Whether it be field trips or they're going to have to tighten the belt. This is going to be around for a while. I mean,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I think high school sports. I mean, we're going to have a chance to see what the college is going to do first, and I think a lot of the lead's going to be taken from there. But I think there's real question on what's going to happen in the fall. I don't think anything's rubber stamped for that.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. So, Harry, my last question I have for you.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to somebody that's trying to break in as a photographer? They have the same passion that you have. They've got that camera. They've got what it takes. What advice would you give them?
I would start with the little leagues or the high schools, and try to you don't need to be at a Bills game or a Sabres game or an NBA game. You just need to be at a game and start at the lower level, and just work your craft that way, and just to get better at what you do. I mean, everybody has pretty much access to the same equipment now. It's all autofocus, so you don't need to learn to focus a camera. But just start at the lower level, and just try to work your way up and talk to people and read and make yourself knowledgeable, and that'd probably be it.
All right. Well, that's my last question I have. I want to just say, Harry, thank you so much for joining me on the West New York Athletics High School Sportsline. Like I said, I've got the best photographer in the business here, and you were the first person I had to get to join me on this show, and I just can't thank you enough.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and I hope Frankie feels better.
Yeah, let's hope so. So we'll talk to him soon.